So I got a good one, alright? I got a good one, alright? A Khazar, two Muslims, and an Asian guy walk into Breitbart. They run the place! Oh! Welcome to the Last Forgotten Channel.
I made a joke.
Takes my pain back to breathe out of another thing. I know it's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way it treated me too many times before. Don't you know you love me, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side today I've died. Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done pissed me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the hell it is, wherever the hell you are. Maximo. Welcome to the Lost Begotten channel. Slow news day? Holy crap. I didn't even want, I had to get out my notepad and start writing today. I was just like, thoughts, too many thoughts, brain working. No, don't want it to. Oh, it's been a long news year, but today in particular, I mean, just keeps coming and coming. And as I finally found this evening's Rachel Maddow broadcast, I realized so much more had happened that I'm just going to have to watch that with you guys, because I wanted to talk about all the other shit that happened today. I wanted to talk about the stuff that I had from earlier this morning. And but to start with, I want to follow up on my opening joke. And if you haven't seen the opening joke, I do have DVR mode enabled, so you should be able to skip back to the end of the beginning of the broadcast from wherever you enter it. Let me know if that works. I don't even know if that works, but supposedly that's what that does. And anyway, so how do I start this? Like how would one begin? How does one begin a conversation that shouldn't have to have? You know, like, shouldn't have to happen. It just you shouldn't have to tell somebody this crap. People like who consider themselves men, who were ever like in the Boy Scouts or anything like that, should have already figured this out and shouldn't need, crazy Jesus guy on YouTube to tell them. But sign of the times, if you will. Sign of the fact that I'm not crazy, and, well, YouTube is all you get, because that's what's there. Either that or I start writing letters again, and this just seemed to make more sense to me. Anyway. So, where to begin? What the hell were you fucking people thinking? Okay, and I'm talking to the neo-Nazis, the alt-right, and the KKK, and Trump supporters in general. I wrote left, I meant to write right. Right there, where I wrote left. Evangelicals, basically people who are this Breitbart viewership, readership, or whatever. Professedly a bunch of white people, right? Many of them saying, we're not neo-Nazis, we're just white pride people, we just want to protect our culture. Going about it the wrong way, I must say, but nothing wrong with that particular part of the idea that you've done horribly wrong. But here's a little hint as to why you're going about it so horribly wrong that you should already fucking know. Okay? The managing editors of Breitbart, like, you see the one guy on TV, the redheaded guy, that's a Khazar, okay? That's someone who's a cross between ancient kidnapped royal blood and Anunnaki and Georgian, okay? That's a very smart, evolved dude. And, if you want to consider him white, I would take pride in him being a white guy. Problem is, he's not. Not by the definition that he gives you. the self-contradictions run rampant. The cognitive dissonance entertains the shit out of me, but it's gotten tedious. It's really gotten tedious. See, you've been led into calling Obama a foreign national, not a real citizen, Muslim, all this crap, by some guys whose names I can't even remember except for Polanski. One of them was Hassan. I mean, there's two guys with like Middle Eastern sounding names, and then there's an Asian guy. But if you know nothing about Mongolian horde history, I suppose you would never know that there was a connection there with the horde, with the Khazars, and people of Asian descent and people of Arab descent, colluding together, if you will. And I'm not trying to be racist here, but aren't you supposed to be? So you got basically the people who you're supposed to be paranoid of are leading you around like a bunch of little dumbass puppies. And in addition to that, apparently the guy who is organizing this Unite the Right shit, well, he's a Chechen false Jew. I mean, he's like one of these guys who've been around in the white supremacist movement and been called out over and over again, who are Jews, if you like trace back what they used to be before they got into that, what their family is. But if you trace that back further, you find out they're probably not real Jews. This is all a very complicated and very sensitive subject. And, I can't help thinking about all the, this is going to get flagged. Like everything I say in the back of my head, I'm just like, flagging that, they're flagging that, they're flagging that. Down at Flaggle Rock, okay. Flaggle Rock. Yes. That's like a morning cartoon with puppets and profanity. Anyway. It's not a cartoon. It's Jim Henson. Anyways. So yeah, this I was like, no. But like I really shouldn't have been shocked to see the fucking fat little pudged up little nose guy with the beard, with the whiskery beard and the glasses. And he looks like 5 other fucking guys who are all in the same thing. Okay, it's like this. And actually his dad is involved in the same shit. And like there's nothing Aryan looking about these guys, and for them to be like the white nationalist neo-Nazi people, I don't mean to like help out neo-Nazis by saying this. I mean to point out how stupid you have to be a neo-Nazi to begin with, okay? You're being trolled. These guys aren't white. You're being made to look like a bunch of fucking buffoons by a false Jew, a Khazar, like a highly evolved Khazar, a guy Polanski or whatever. He's a smart guy. He really is. I mean, manipulative son of a bitch, I'll tell you that. Takes pride in his evilness, and I'll get into that in a second. And then, I see there's an Asian guy and 2 Muslim guys, Arabic guys. I don't know that if they are Muslim. But, when you have a who's who of what genetic lines are in the center of the fucking horde, and they happen to be doing horde shit, it's quacking and it's got feathers, motherfucker. That's all I'm saying. that just goes to show you that there is a concerted effort that can be tracked by atheists that is tantamount to what I've said and explained to be demonic blindness. Okay? That is, you sell your soul and commit yourself to a particular type of inequity that is a form of rebellion against God for what you have been afflicted with or don't have and want from other people. Or in these cases, it seems like just being afraid is enough. And what you have is a coincidental network that ties back to the very people who sowed Satanism and atheism as a means by which to logistically and politically destroy America. So these are abstract concepts that are playing out in reality just as they would, metaphorically appropriately. I mean, like, y'all can tell I'm having trouble explaining this, but do y'all get what I'm saying? Like you guys, I mean, basically what's happened in the past year, 2, 3, and overall over the past 100 years to this country is proof that the war between heaven and hell and good and evil exists. Is proof that Christianity is this hunted, leftover survival population of God's kingdom. And, like, the shame of it is that these white people that are being convinced into being neo-Nazis, their ancestors were a big part of that. And them being convinced to, have been segregated and have been so, I mean, by segregated, I don't mean like segregation like you picture in the 50s and 60s. I mean, like, people just went out and wanted to be by them fucking selves and start their own little communities, and there was a vast wilderness that was, largely unpopulated, not completely unpopulated, but, a lot of it seemed unpopulated. And they went out and they got set in their ways and forgot about the people that, came before them, that prided themselves on the communities that they built, okay? See, the stupidest thing in the world, like a walking self-contradiction even, is a white racist, okay? Because a white person's best attribute, okay, the best attribution of an Anglican white person, all right, that's what people consider to be Aryan when they look at it, but actually Aryan is the exact opposite. That's Turkic. Turkic is Aryan. Really, Khazarian and Caucasian has more claim to the mythical fucking Aryan than Anglican or even Saxon white people. But anyways, the most embarrassing, dumbest fucking thing an Anglican white person can be, okay, that is most of the white people in this country, most of the white people in Europe and England and France and Germany, all right, the tribes of Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh, all right, because their specialty, their talent given to them by God, and I believe it's even written in the Bible, the cause by which Ephraim and Manasseh inherited their land from Joseph, is so that they would build communities so that they understood riches came from a coat of many colors. You know, there's an old painting of Joseph in his dream, and one set of the stars in that painting looks just like Kira's birthmark. I couldn't find that painting again. I wish I... it might be on an old hard drive, but I wish I had access to it. I think it was just called Joseph's Dream. It might have been by Michelangelo or somebody famous like that. Anyways. Yeah. You know, like, I appreciate that as a compliment, Maximo. But I feel ya on that. Because for a long time I was in that same boat. And it felt to me like this is almost the truth. There's bits of truth here. These are obviously a bunch of deceivers using the truth to add power to their deception. But I could never figure it out. And I used to pray for the man to come back and, you know, just sort it all out. Never thinking, not since I was a little tiny boy and still thought about Kira on a daily basis. Not once since then did I think, oh, maybe I'll be Jesus. This wasn't like a thing that I said, you know, oh, maybe I can, like, maybe there is a person and I could be him who could earn the right to be. Like, there's all these stupid fucking ways that people might assume that I came about this. None of them happened. I met Kira. Didn't recognize her. There was something familiar about her. And it took me remembering a one-night stand with her and then realizing she went to King and then, like, wait a minute. No, I know you before. I know your hair. I know your hands. I know the slope of your nose. And the more curious I got about that, the more this weird UFO type spiritual weird shit was happening to us. And we got a lot of it on video. I've shown you all that. And then once what was happening made me realize who I was, who she was, and that confirmed who I was, and there I was, and nothing but stress ever since. And then, you know, I remember going back in the house and getting my bear. I even said, wait, who the fuck are you people? And I was glowing, like blue was radiating from me. Okay, high frequency light was radiating from me. I was actinic. I was at 420 nanometers. All right, and I could see the look of fear in the couple of friends I had over, and my wife's, you know, just a girl I had now kind of rescued out of an abusive relationship and was like kind of dating or starting to be in a relationship with, starting to learn to love, kind of. But I came back in because she had said, I think you need to be alone with them. After I did the, if you're you and I'm me, then he's, or shit, I forgot exactly the order of that. I'm trying to stay focused on the whatever the hell story I'm telling. So I come back in, and I'm just like, I need to get my bearings. And then I sensed Hathor's presence, and I just, like, waved my hand like that and threw her in the freaking lamp, and she just sat there and flickered for a little while. I just kind of went, "Can you see that?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're all leaning back in their fucking chairs. I understand that that's, like, what it would take for a lot of you to believe that I'm me, I suppose. But I think it's rather rude, borderline cruel, for you to wish that state of being upon me. Do any of you ever consider how lonely it is at the top? Because that's been my struggle for 12,000 years. And I remember all of it. Just the same way any other memory would remember. Checking my phone. Okay. Ooh! He found it. Okay. Alright, where's my... Oh! Where's my we are? That's language I just made up for wire. Alright, so I need to save that. And my little bar went red, so I'm sorry if it's lagging right now. Let me do this before I get into a story and get my phone away from the laptop. I was watching, like, Arthur C. Clarke. I was reading Arthur C. Clarke and watching Ripley's Believe It or Not at, like, 5 years old. That was my shit, okay? Like, other people were watching it. Like, I watched He-Man and, like, Transformers and Thundercats that I would largely have to myself, and there were 2 channels. There was just BBC One, BBC Two. So that's what I watched. I used to love it. My sisters used to all do a little believe it or not. Like, we'd all try to creep each other out with that. Yep. Sorry about that. That's my my infested phone. I guess one day I'll have to talk to Kerrigan of the Zerg about that. StarCraft joke. So, what was I doing here? I was getting out the birthmark photo, if I can find that right quick. I don't think it should be too much of a problem. There we go. Alright. So, as I've said many times, my contention is simply that you have the proof right in front of you, and you are all blinded basically by demons, by your inequities, by your choices, into not seeing what is right in front of your face. Nobody cuddles with their little brother. Okay, that's fucking weird. Stop thinking that. The man in the middle's name is John. The woman's name is Mary. Back then they called me Jonas. Or the Greeks called me Jonas. And my wife, well, she's been around too. This is her arm, her right arm, the traditional Athenian position of insignia. And here is, let's see, do we have any qualifying information that comes with that? Painting, Joey, did you find out the name for it? Maybe it says it on the image itself. Suppose I can check for that. If I could remember what folder I put it in. That's not the folder. Alright. It just says the details. No details. Well, that was pointless. So, I think it's fairly obvious that the stars in this picture are not arranged at random. And you have a suggested level of significance here. You have the moon, and then you have the what do they call it? What's like the proper name for it? The Star of David. You know, y'all know. You know, the Star of David. Pythagoras or something like that. It's the thing that basically, when the Horde started to take over, the Khazarian mercantile class, that are the people who were, you know, basically now accusing Westerners of harboring these fucking banker Jews. And one of the things that they did as a religious practice when they all had their little gatherings was they had these things that are cubes that look like a six-pointed thing. They have six sides, and they are the mark of the beast, basically. And guess where they had them? On their arms, on their foreheads. They still do it to this day, and it's a religious thing. It's like a relic of the past. And if you're looking for some mark of the beast on people's foreheads and arms these days, you're not going to find it. Because that already happened 1,000 years ago. When it was prophesied, 1,000 years after Pentecost. It happened on schedule, or you're mocking the Bible by looking for it now. Just as a lot of things happened 1,000 years ago. Some of them are happening again. Many of them, in fact. But that is so passé. This is now. This is the culmination of the entire universe trying to tell you people something. That the Horde, that this, some evil presence, some evil mafia force, I call it the Horde. Because, you know, I'm an old white guy, I guess. Has been basically deceiving not only your perception of the world and of your own past, but of what it means to believe in something. The core building blocks of everything that makes most people in this country, what makes you people, is being taken away from you. And there was this vast chauvinistic conspiracy, okay? People that believe in enslaving children, in possessing women, okay? And certainly don't take advice from either. Even though, you know, God said the truth is spoken on the mouths of babes. And I promised you, did I not, early on, that I would use reality itself to prove this to you. That this empire, this horde, conspired to keep Mary from assuming the throne. If I'm not mistaken, she was hunted with a bounty on her head for 212 years. And that's after dying once and being reborn. Oh, no. Being executed once, being reborn. And then dying at childbirth, being reborn. Then being executed again. And that's where it kind of gets fuzzy for me. But after the childbirth death, and until the next execution, it's about 240 years, 220 years. And that's the reason why instead of a cross at our wedding, we had a post with a ribbon around it. A white satin ribbon. I'm trying to get out of the traumatizing memories and remember what the fuck I was talking about. Okay, so dots, yeah. So that's on my wife's arm. And there, that constellation, by whatever painting, found it on an Australian government art site. Oh, wow. That does look familiar, like the way Australian children's cartoons used to be made back in the 80s. You want to see something that's kind of cool, but like close to my heart, look up Toby and the Koala. It's about a prison gang and a little kid that kind of makes a koala pet. And you'll finally know what the fuck I'm talking about when I randomly sing, I'm Jed the peg diddle 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 with the extra leg diddle 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 diddle. It's the most random silly song ever. And then you'll know where it's from, and you can cause those awkward moments too. Like, what the fuck? Guys talking about an extra leg. I don't think that's PG. So anyways, yes. In the painting, be very fascinated to know who it's by. And whoever it is suggesting that this particular constellation is of similar importance and of equal stature to the moon, and is of similar importance and possibly higher stature than the Star of David, and oh, look at that, there's the sun beneath it. Joseph had a dream in which he saw 11 stars. Yeah. And I forget the story. Interesting. I've been trying to like consciously forget stories I've read and learned in this life, so I could try to unpack, you know, and be able to more clearly tell. But it's getting to the point where I'm getting back to that curious phase where I want to go back and read everything again and start verifying again. I haven't done that for at least a year. Anyways. So yeah. There's that painting I've mentioned a few times. You can bet your ass if I tell you I've seen something, it exists. If I say something happened, it happened. I give honest accounts, and, you know, frankly, my memory is more reliable than most people's, okay? I learned this in school. I'm the guy who just, like, sat there and just, like, the teachers get tired of calling on me, okay? I was a big fucking dork. I could sleep in most of my classes and get by on test scores, okay? And I worked full time, so yeah, my last couple years of high school, I kind of needed to. But anyways, last year I had a 3.6 junior year and a 3.8 my senior year, so I've been pretty good at not getting very much sleep ever since. Plus, you know, all those years living in my car, I'd be getting like 15 minutes of sleep a day if I was lucky. I believe those are tulips, and yes, I do believe those tulips are in the story. Make me want to freaking get my Bible out. Maybe I can put it on the Googles. But see, if I'm not mistaken, work, internet. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, this dream has something to do with a prophecy that he would eminently give to a king. And in reading it, I always felt like it was encoded and something was off. So Genesis 37:5, is it? Alright. Let me just rearrangificate this stuff here. I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. First instinct, though, is really Genesis? Like that. It just doesn't seem that long ago. Anyways. My wife in her wedding dress. Oh, look. Genesis 1. How appropriate. So, we were going to Genesis 37:5, was it? So, my thinking is this is, just as a note for like Emily and people who like to try to figure all this shit out with me. I think Joseph is my incarnation prior to son of Samson. I've felt a weird level of kinship with the Samson story since I was very young. And I've never been able to cut my hair without that fear that I was doing something wrong. That's weird. I know. But, in light of all the other shit, and then the Mandians say that John the Baptist was also the son of Samuel. So, I'd also like to look up who the hell was Samson's daddy. Anyway, maybe it was, because I don't think it's written that he's the son of Samuel, but like maybe that's like a secret, What we have here was compiled after we lost the war for Europe. Okay, the King James Bible compiled after we lost the war for Europe by an entire zombie army of people brainwashed by Kabbalists, who were the people who were supposed to keep this old shit a secret. So, got to do some digging, don't you? Anyway, ooh, my CPU usage detected. I had a Maltese Bible at work, but it was taken from my desk. A Maltese Bible. I want one of those. That would tell me a lot about the current state of Malta. Anyways. So, Jacob and this is still loosely theory, because I could see why I might attribute this to a memory. Okay. But I know that through discernment, he fits within this context, and I know that through discernment, he fits within the context we've discussed over and over again, the God of War. Yahovah, Jehovah, Jacob, who became Azrael, is the God of War incarnate. And when he fought with God and won, you have a starting point for Greek mythos. Interesting, isn't it? That's why this is this channel. See? Fuck else is gonna put that shit together? It's how I remember it. But, like, you know, I want to say that's crazy, but then, oh no, it bears scrutiny. Oh shit. And every time I do that, I realize I'm me. Isn't it about time more people did? I can't wait till some Jehovah's Witnesses come to the house. I'm gonna educate them. That'd be fun. The Order of Malta came to the jail for an inmate outreach, and I had gotten an extra, but it was taken. Figures. You ought to reach out to them, Joey. You know what I mean? Nudge, nudge. Say no more. Okay. So, does anybody mind if I read the Bible out loud and stuff? Genesis chapter 37. Joseph angers his brothers, and Jacob dwelt in the land, and Yaakov dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger. In the land of Canaan. You know, just to the north, right? These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, which is not her name. But we're going to go with that. And with the sons of Zilpah, which is also not her name. But we'll still go with that. His father's wives. Well, two of his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. I remember that. Now Israel loved Joseph, what? Hold on. Am I having a dyslexic moment here? Yes. Jacob, Israel. It says Jacob there. Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. So he had him when he was old. He was his new baby. Right? And he made him a coat of many colors. Anybody else always picture a bathrobe? And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. So the sons of Israel, the other tribes, if you will, they hated him because of his blessing, because of his coat of many colors. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. That means they gave reverence to me. They indicated their subservience or obedience. Not they fed you a lot of Twinkies and you got fat. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shalt I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Mark that as chopped right there. Genesis 37:11. Chopped. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here I am. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it will be with thy brethren, and well with the flocks.
and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed the flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. Dothan, you say Dothan, I say Dothan. Dothan. Okay. And when they came when they came and saw, and they took the highland. When they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. That's a familiar sounding moment. But again, it doesn't feel like it should be in Genesis. So, if you did the same thing 5 times, separated by 8,000 years, or 5,000 years, about 4,300 years here, at least 3,800, but, still, did the same thing over that amount of time period, how much would you be able to distinguish the individual moments? Because I'm having some difficulty, I must say. Anyways. So, moving on. And they said to one another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might be rid out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. Excuse me. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah came, and Judah said unto his brethren, and Judah came and said unto his brethren, and do thou this. Yeah. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there they passed by the Midianites, it says that. Yes, I like to be spastic and funny. Get over it. They passed by Midianites, merchantmen, And they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. Why do they do that? What? Over here it's Jacob and it's Israel. And it's, they're Ishmaelites. Oh, but they're Midianites. But they're Ishmaelites. Sounds kind of fucking familiar, doesn't it? Genesis. Oh, I'm about to need a break. My foot's going numb. Okay. Oh no. Okay. So. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, semicolon, and they drew and lifted Joseph up out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit. And by the way, as far as I know, this is not Kemet. Egypt here like when I was a kid, it made me think of India. And then you have these mystic vagabond type people from India. And they're called gypsies. Have been for a long time, a lot longer than we've been calling Kemet Egypt. Okay? Just wanted to make a note of that. Yeah, me too, Max. It always perplexed me too. Like, I always felt like there was something deeper about it that needed to be understood. And I always thought it had to do with, like, the races, you know, the coat of many colors. Right? The races. There used to be another word for it that didn't have the same context as races. Anyways. Why did Putin sow racism in NATO? To get to the finish line. Okay. So, and Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren, and said, The child is not, whither I shall go. And they took Joseph's coat, and killed the kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This we have found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And then they cast lots. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and daughters rose up to confront him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites, not the Ishmaelites? Oh wait, the Ishmaelites and the Midianites are the same? Maybe? Sold him into Egypt unto Patipahar, which definitely sounds like something in India. An officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Egypt was ruled by like a evil goddess kinda. At least at that point. But I'm not talking about Kemet. I'm talking about India. So, well, I'm struggling to give a context to the title of Pharaoh in the magical island of India. But basically, we're talking about the land from Kuwait, just past Kuwait, South Iran, the southern Iran area, and then all the way to the Indus River. And I think that's what this was referring to as Egypt. So, Pharaoh Potiphar, really? Potiphar? An officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Oh, but apparently, according to Dr. Henry, Potiphar, archaeological research shows that Potiphar, like Pharaoh, was a title in Egypt rather than a person's name. Oh, well, I think I'm dwelling on that too long anyways. And it came to pass at the time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shue. And he took her, and went unto her, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. This doesn't sound like human shit to me. This is... This is deeper shit than I wanted to get in on a midnight broadcast, that's for sure. Supposed to get into news, wasn't I? Alright. Not trying to get into a bunch of genealogies. So, anyways, the story ends. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this, and maybe we can pick this up another time. But the story ends where Joseph is made a master by skill. And becomes basically the managing director of the entire kingdom during a time of famine, because his dreams wind up helping Pharaoh, and yes, I'm now remembering the rest of Bible study and stuff. His dreams wind up helping Pharaoh avoid mass starvation of his people, so Pharaoh puts him in charge. So there comes a day during this famine which the people of Canaan are coming to barter for grain, and Joseph orders them to be seized, and he asks them where is their other brother, and then reveals himself to him, and it's, all very dramatic, and yeah. There's been plenty of movies about it, that's for sure. But of course now I'm sitting here trying to remember the way it's taught and the way the movies are, instead of attempting to gain my own perspective. And that's why I don't read shit right now, or try not to. Anyways, so let's get back to more current times, because I just don't know what to say about all that. Because it really just doesn't seem like that long ago to me. But it does seem like an odd amount of foreshadowing, not only for the time of Christ, okay, 2,000 years ago, but did anybody else get the impression that it's kind of foreshadowing, like, now and me, and what my instinct on the coat of many colors should be? What was his coat of many colors? Was he a shapeshifter? Could he go to any race? Okay, and we're talking about proto-human races here still, I think. We're talking about gods and animal deities, even, a time in which animal deities existed, or animal form deities were in communication with human form deities, to say the least. So his coat of many colors, and the stars giving reverence to him. Now, basically, what was I just trying to teach you people? You know, like, what was I just trying to teach white people, other people? You know, I look white now, but I still have my coat of many colors. I'm currently genetically a member of just about every race there is, except for, like, Southeast Asian. I don't think I have any Southeast Asian in me. Pretty much everything else is covered, though. But whether it was shape-shifting back then, or whether or not you see it as foreshadowing for the ability to unite people of many different cultures, it is apparently an ability that I'm persecuted for. Something that has gotten me killed before, enslaved before. God would not have shown Joseph this dream and then shown him other dreams that proved helpful, only to have this dream be blasphemy. So, one must take into separate account what the meaning of it is when the stars bow down to someone who's supposed to be just a human. And, you know, if you put it in the context of God creating a God, and then that God having a son, that son becoming greater than the previous God, Gabriel, Yahweh as it was in that time. And then 3 generations down, the first God gets born as a son to that God, who just became superior, or proved himself stronger than the previous one. What you have is an overlap between Egyptian Horacian mythos and the story of the baby Jesus. Anyway. So, I guess that's enough on the weird mystical stuff. But thanks, Joey, for finding that paint. It'll end up being a much more interesting tangent than I had planned for. Anybody got any questions about that? Ask them now. Otherwise, I'm going to maybe find my notes and get back to the news. Or I might just switch that to tomorrow morning, because this is kind of this is more of an opening topic, okay? And I'm going to touch up on the Breitbart stuff again when I get into that. And yeah, these news topics are a little too important to cover at the end of a big whatever the crap just happened. So I'm going to get to those again tomorrow. I'm going to read right quick what happened in case anybody's curious. The FBI's counterterrorism czar has issued a warning that basically not only should we stay the fuck away from Kaspersky products, Russian supposed internet security products, but he just came out and confirmed what I've been saying for quite some time, is just about how fucked we are. He says that we basically are short-staffed by about 300,000 people. We would need 300,000 more I'm not that's not misread. That's like I backed it up and I made sure 300,000 is the number he gave for the number of counter cyber espionage, cybersecurity experts that we would need to hire to be safe from Russian hacking and shit. 300,000. Oh my god. And that's even worse than I said. Like I was trying to imagine. I was thinking maybe 30,000, maybe 50,000. We've had numbers before of 10 to 15,000. We've had the 30,000 number actually before. He says 300,000 is what we need to counteract what the problem is. One thing I need to make a big point about presenting in the beginning of the video tomorrow is so many things right now are all a fucking setup. I mean, like, it's all a setup, okay? And I don't think that's going to hamper the Trump-Russia investigation or anything. But it's still destroying America. It's still preventing us from having a proper level of political discourse. And it's certainly still keeping centrists, and especially the true Christians that are out there, from having any sort of conversation, any sort of dialogue. They're just... You got... On one side, you got the Antifa, and you get the Young Turks, and you got Black Lives Matter. On the other side, you got fucking Nazis, and you got fucking KKK, and you got fucking alt-right people. Okay? All of these groups are funded by Russia. All of these groups are aided in every way they can be, and coordinated, and nudged along at the right times and in the right places by Russian intelligence. Okay, that doesn't mean there's somebody in there who knows that they're talking to somebody who's got a Russian accent and shit. No. Your contact is somebody who's just like you. Their contact is somebody who's probably still just like them. And then their contacts with the Russian guy. Anyways. So, in addition to the Kaspersky thing, that was pretty interesting. Bannon, speaking of the Breitbart stuff, Bannon was kind of trolled, or should I say, the Breitbart staff was kind of trolled by that same hacker guy who sends the fake emails. Well, this time he was posing as Bannon in these emails and was pranking Polanski, the Khazar guy. And the thing I wanted to touch on later, I said earlier about evil. I'm going to put Rachel Maddow on in a second. And listen for when Polanski reacts to the accusation of one of their enemies as being evil, as being odd. Like, okay, the troll that's pretending to be Bannon says blah 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 is evil, such and such. I think it was Ivanka or Jared, right? I don't remember. The fact that this issue came up is what stood out to me, and I didn't get a chance to back it up and see it again. He took exception to, like, why would, like, kind of almost as if he was saying, what's wrong with being evil? Like, that's an interesting way to describe them. Almost as if, like, no, if they were evil, they'd be fine. We're evil. And that's the red-headed guy that's been on the talk shows past couple days talking about Bannon, and the guy with the little earpiece on his. Oh, for fuck's sake. So, the stars bowing down or the stars in obeisance, is basically what happened in 2011. And it's happened to me before in previous lives. And it happens basically when reality resets, is the best way I can explain it. And it started, I meant to mention this earlier, it started with this constellation that no matter where I am, when I go outside, it's always right in front of me. It's more or less pyramid shaped, and it's got this one little extra dot like that you can see, and if you look really close, it does have the other one. Okay, so it's basically shaped like that constellation on my wife's arm. And I when the following story happened, I had not yet noticed her birthmark. Okay, we're out there looking at the stars and doing UFO watching and stuff. And I walked down to the end of the balcony, and according to my wife, and we tried this with other people, it worked with them too. This constellation, these stars, it's a constellation. It's not like some random group of shit that was there that's not usually there. It's a constellation that's always there, and it's always in the same place. Okay? Followed me down the fucking balcony. Like, it's out there, and I'm right there, and my wife was sitting down. I walked to the end of the balcony, and she says it just moved all the way over to the edge of the skyline right there. And then as I walked back, it walked back too. And it kind of leaned when it did it. Similar thing, the Washington, D.C. UFO incident. Those pyramid orb constellations. This constellation seems to be one of those. And again, it's stars. It's always there. If you find it, it's pretty apparent which one I'm talking about. It should be upright this time of year. But that thing followed me around. And there's some weird shit I don't like. I can't not feel crazy about talking about it anymore. When I first woke up and I started doing like just rapid amounts of time travel, one of the things I did was I appeared as a little boy to Congress in, I think, 1949. Like, as obvious me. And I told them what was up. And I told them about who Russia really was. I told them about what my plans were in general, what I expected of them, blah, blah, blah. So, if, government, if you're watching and you have that on secret record, you might want to realize who you're making go broke by allowing his YouTube channel to be suppressed. I mean, of all the things that I should have to endure at this point, really, being just tediously broke all the damn time, it's just annoying. It's like, yeah, speaking of which, we are once again asking for your support on this channel with the donations to the place and the pudding pops. So, if you're appreciative of all of my efforts and whatnot, I do have good news though. The monthly amount has gone up to, let's see, where is it? Oh no, I already turned the Wi-Fi off on my phone. It was $16.85 last I looked at it. I used to be pissed at like, when it got below $34, because that meant it would be like 3 months before I got a paycheck. Now I'm just like, will I get a check in 2017, I wonder? Oh, it's starting to look like I might actually get a paycheck in 2017. But anyways, for all the future people who are looking at this tomorrow, please try to figure out the riddle. It's not very hard. It's pretty obvious, in fact. And you just, whatever you can, $10,000, $20,000, I'll put it to good use. Just for the record, you're not paying me to sit around the house and bitch and give random opinions that just anybody could give. I give random opinions that only I can give. And also, the money I get right now, other than, basics of taking care of my kids, goes into the future aquaculture business / coastal restoration project. And that water's getting high. Hold on, I need to stop my refilling. Alright. So, earlier, the stomatellas spawned. And I think the one that we got on film was a male, because what it was producing was really cloudy, really fine. And when we looked at the water, it looked like it was micro-bubbly. Like there was all kinds of particles in it that were bigger than what that guy was squirting out. Skeet. So I harvested some of the water. I turned off all the pumps. It all started kind of floating a little bit to the surface. Got there with a siphon. And I got about 1.5 gallons of possible fertilized stomatella eggs. They are now in the incubator. And we're going to see what happens. Really, Joey? Not going to read that one out loud. So anyways, I really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me and making the conversation more interesting. It gets really fucking tedious, especially at night, because I hardly ever sleep, so I'm always tired. Coming on here, and the notifications don't get sent out, so I'm going to try to do it on more regular times now. The kids are back in school. I've been kind of getting on here around 7:45 or 8 o'clock in the morning, so we're just going to do 7 and 11 because it's easy. 7 and 11. And I'm thinking about sticking with the morning kvefi and then evening broadcasts. Maybe hashtag nightlight. I don't know. Nightlight live stream. I don't know. That's all I could think of. Like in the 5 minutes I was trying to think of what the fuck to put on the video. So anyways. They're getting dirty in the comments here. Alright. So everybody pray for the little stomatella babies. I really want little stomatella babies. I told y'all before, I had like 150 of them in a 10 gallon. just started growing everywhere, and they keep everything clean. They really do. They are the best cleanup snail possible because they can get anywhere. They don't have a big bulky shell that'll make them get stuck in an overflow or anything. They can even climb a little bit out of the water and they're just fine. Joey says, "I'm sorry, I shall clean it up." That's C made. So I don't have to read it out loud. I'll just uncover that for anybody who can see what's going on there. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, we're currently in a financial bind because school supplies totaled over $400, including tuba rental and car insurance and uniforms. Just summertime electric bill. Even though I replaced all my T5s with LEDs and I've taken a filter off, I've taken 2 filters off. That protein skimmer actually is lower wattage. I've replaced many of the fluorescent bulbs in the house. Don't use incandescent bulbs. Replace those with LED bulbs. And my electric bill is still doubled right now. It's almost $300. It's $286 for a month of electricity. Good God. So yeah, that just all slammed us all at once. So we're doing the pathetic begging thing again. What can I say? But oh well. All I'm doing is asking to not work for free. So, moving on. The Bible doesn't say thou shalt be an asshole, unless you count the books Genesis through Revelation. Yeah, all of it. Here we have the broadcast from earlier. And let's see here. Trying to get it focused a bit closer there. Alright, I guess that's good enough. So, we're going to be doing some Matto. And I'm going to go ahead and leave those headlines up there. We'll talk about that tomorrow. It does seem like some other people have picked up on what I was going to be discussing. There's been a lot of just different clues, even with the lack of mention of China when it comes to Afghanistan deployments and the whole kind of setting India and Pakistan against each other. Then behind the scenes or whatever, Trump is going after them on trade, on intellectual property, and kind of making his own personal beefs with China because of some of the things that they've done to make his business expansion into China more difficult. He's, risking our ability to solve the North Korea situation for his own personal vendettas with China. So that's, if you're wondering about that other little piece on the topics, that's what that's about. But yeah, other than that, the last thing on the news list, my notes here, to the protesters, to all these fucking people that are being misguided by these Russian paid groups like the Young Turks and Black Lives Matter and Antifa. None of those signs you're holding are working. Okay? Like, nothing you do basically is working. If you really wanted to, like, solve this problem, if you really wanted to have strategy in what you were doing, you would march up to the people holding the rebel flags with American flags, and you would chant USA and make them realize what they're doing. See, you're focusing on your feelings, and you need to be fighting a war. Okay? To fight a war, you need tactics, you need strategy. You can't be holding up a sign saying, I'm upset or whatever. Not people hold up this. Oh, it's kind of hilarious when they just say, like, this is not very, I am not happy about this or whatever. But what you need to do is have signs with Bible verses, with, you're going to hell. Trump is the Antichrist. You need to be using their tactics against them because that's the language that they understand. So if you're going to hold up a sign and then chant shame, shame, shame at people walking into a Donald Trump rally, you need to be holding up signs that speak their language. Otherwise, when you tell them shame, they're just laughing at you because you're just a bunch of godless liberals and you don't know what you're talking about. But if you start talking about God doesn't like Donald Trump or what he's got his supporters doing, then you're going to be getting somebody's attention. So that's one of the many reasons why I say you little children need me, or you're going to lose horribly, and like we're all going to die, kind of, just a bit. So anyways, let's watch some Rachel Maddow, and y'all feel free to ask questions or comment in the chat. And let me know how the sound is.
Live in just a few minutes. President Trump, of course, is in Phoenix, Arizona tonight, despite requests from local authorities there, including the mayor, that the president please not make this trip, that he please not do this rally, not in Phoenix, not now. The mayor of Phoenix is about to join us in a moment. He is a Democrat, but some of the news breaking tonight about the conflict over the president's Arizona rally really is not Democratic versus Republican politics. It's very much just Republican politics. Republican politics sort of pushed to the max, to the point where the former chief of staff to the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, his former chief of staff is tonight issuing threats to President Trump that if President Trump doesn't back off what he's doing to attack other Republicans right now, he may find himself facing impeachment in the Senate sooner rather than later. Unnamed Republican sources are also making very serious allegations to the New York Times tonight that beyond the allegations already being investigated, that the president may have pressured the FBI to drop its Russia investigation. Beyond the existing investigation into whether or not the president obstructed justice when he fired the FBI director to try to stop the Russia investigation. Unnamed Republican sources are telling the New York Times tonight that the president may also have tried to block the investigation into the Russia matter that's being conducted in the United States Senate by the investigating committees in the United States Senate. In fact, these allegations tonight from these Republican sources speaking to the New York Times are that those efforts by the president to potentially obstruct those inquiries into that part of the Russia matter, those efforts by the president may be continuing tonight as we speak. So this is actually, I think, potentially a very serious turn in the ongoing investigations into this president, into the Russia scandals that continue to swirl around this presidency. Now, in order to understand what's going on here, though, the details of this I'm gonna lay out the story as the New York Times tells it tonight. The details of this at first are just going to sound like a politics story, but if you wade through those Beltway politics just a little bit, what you end up with very quickly looks like it may be a brand new problem for the White House in terms of potential obstruction of justice by the president, personally. All right, so here's the story. The president tonight, as you know, has gone to Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has a Democratic mayor, who we're going to speak with in a moment, but the state also has a Republican governor and 2 Republican senators. Now, it is not an accident.
Just right quick. Just right quick, I wanted to say something. I'm pretty sure it's already begun in secret. Okay? Y'all know what I'm talking about. And I'm pretty sure it happened starting at midnight Eastern, or possibly even 11 Eastern. I think it was at midnight Eastern, the night that this phone call that they're going to talk about happened.
Tonight that neither the Republican governor of Arizona nor the 2 Republican senators from Arizona are going to be attending this event with the president. That is because those 2 Republican senators from Arizona, at least, they appear to drive this president crazy. Even before Arizona Senator John McCain blocked the last Republican effort to repeal Obamacare in the Senate, the president's hatred and disdain for Senator John McCain had brought Trump close to political disaster with his attacks against McCain, even targeting McCain's heroic war record. So that's McCain. He's the senior senator from Arizona. The junior senator from Arizona is Jeff Flake, who has been more confrontational toward President Trump than almost any other elected Republican anywhere, including in a recent book where he's highly critical, not just of President Trump, but he's critical of himself and the Republican Party for allowing Trump to become the party's nominee and their president. Since then, President Trump has repeatedly gone after Senator Flake, giving him the schoolyard nickname, Flake, Jeff Flake, which isn't even a good nickname as Trump nicknames go. More substantively, he has been hyping a Republican Senate primary challenger in Arizona who ran against John McCain in the last election cycle and who wants to run against Jeff Flake in the next election cycle. She lost quite badly to John McCain last year. It's hard to tell at this point whether she poses a real threat to Jeff Flake next year. But she is expected to be at this rally tonight with President Trump in Phoenix. And that comes after Trump has spent days now hyping her candidacy and talking up her chances against Jeff Flake. So that is, I know that just sounds like, electoral politics, right? Just Beltway politics. That is the immediate political context, the immediate political background of what's going on in this story. Mitch McConnell, of course, is the top Republican in the Senate. Whatever you think about him as a politician, as a leader, as a Republican, Mitch McConnell definitely does take seriously his own responsibility in the Senate to help other Republican senators keep their seats, to help sitting Republican senators fight off Republican primary challengers, to win their general elections against Democratic candidates, to fend off scandals that might unseat them from their Senate seats, right? At the very least, Mitch McConnell needs to keep at least 50 other Republicans in the Senate so he gets to keep his job running the Senate. But also, regardless of that math, he just habitually goes to bat for any sitting Republican senator in order to keep them in their jobs. Well, now that this Republican president has moved on from just insulting one Republican senator in Arizona to now trying to unseat the other Republican senator in Arizona, heading into this Arizona rally tonight, we knew that Mitch McConnell was upset with the president's behavior. We knew that he was trying to undercut the impact of what the president is doing. We knew that Mitch McConnell was going to try to sort of blunt the effect of Trump's screw Jeff Flake trip to Arizona by hosting his own Mitch McConnell high-dollar fundraiser for Jeff Flake this week. We also learned today that a PAC associated with Mitch McConnell has started running ads against that Trump-endorsed candidate who's going to run against Jeff Flake in the Republican primary next year.
Wow.
And I know how this sounds. If you're interested in partisan politics, if you're interested in intra-party fighting and electoral politics and the balance of power in the Senate and stuff like that, those are all interesting details, right? This is an interesting story. This is an interesting tale of intra-party fighting to follow. But you only have to follow it that far before it jumps to a place that is way beyond politics. Because tonight in the New York Times, this little politics story moved from interesting to uh-oh if you were the White House. First, there's that impeachment threat that I mentioned. A man named Billy Piper is quoted by name tonight in the New York Times. He's now a lobbyist. Until recently, he was chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. And Billy Piper throws this threat in the president's direction tonight in the Times. When you hear the threat, you'll understand why it's important that he allowed himself to be quoted by name in making it. Here's what he said, quote, "The quickest way for Trump to get impeached is for him to knock off Jeff Flake and Dean Heller and be faced with a Democrat-led Senate." Right now, in a typical political fight, that would be the place where you'd give, a little bluster, a little brushback. You don't want to lose the Senate, do you? With this president, a brushback citing basic Senate math like that very quickly becomes a fairly credible threat of impeachment for the president. And Republicans, apparently, are not afraid to say it, including Republicans very, very close to the top Republican in the Senate who controls what happens in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. So there's that, the impeachment threat. But here's the worst part from the White House's perspective. Apparently, before Trump and McConnell stopped speaking to each other altogether, which is where they're at now, apparently the last time they spoke, they had what is described in the Times tonight as a, quote, profane shouting match on the telephone. This reportedly happened on August 9th. President Trump apparently placed the call from one of his golf courses, and he spoke with Senator McConnell directly. Citing Republicans, quote, briefed on the conversation, Alexander Burns and Jonathan Martin at the New York Times tonight report that there were two subjects that Trump and McConnell screamed and swore at each other about on that call on August 9th. Number one was, who's responsible for Republicans failing to repeal Obamacare? Okay, got it. We knew they were fighting about that already. But the other subject they apparently screamed and swore at each other about was something very different. I'll just quote to you directly from the Times. Quote, "During the call, which Trump initiated on August 9th from his New Jersey golf club, the president accused Senator McConnell of bungling the healthcare issue. Quote, he was even more animated, though, about what he intimated was the Senate leader's refusal to protect Trump from investigations of Russian interference in the 2016 election." Again, that's according to Republicans briefed on the conversation. So in a call that is described as devolving into a profane shouting match, the president is reportedly berating and screaming at and swearing at the majority leader in the Senate because the senator hasn't protected him from the Russia investigations that are being carried out under his purview by various committees in the Senate. Now, again, this is according to multiple Republican sources who were briefed on that reported conversation between Trump and McConnell on August 9th. The reason that is potentially very, very important and not just a salacious detail about famous people yelling at each other, the reason that's potentially a big uh-oh for the White House here is because the criminal concept of obstruction of justice applies not only to law enforcement, i.e. FBI investigations, it also applies to efforts to influence, obstruct, or impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry or investigation is being had by either House and Congress or by any committee of either House and Congress. And if that sounds wordy and arcane as language, it's because in reading that, I am quoting the language of the criminal statute that defines obstruction of justice and makes clear that obstruction of justice as a crime, as a criminal matter, that applies to efforts to impede or pervert or pressure investigations, not just by cops and prosecutors or the FBI. It also applies to efforts to impede or pervert or obstruct congressional investigations. Now, we're going to have some expert advice on that in just a moment, but remember how we got the special counsel investigation of this president in the first place. Where the Bob Mueller special counsel investigation came from was not just allegations about Russian interference in the last election. It was not, Trump administration figures constantly being caught lying about their contacts with Russians, things they initially denied, but then later they had to admit to. None of that was enough. The reason we got the Bob Mueller special counsel investigation was because the president fired the director of the FBI. And that firing followed credible allegations that the FBI director was fired after he refused to accede to pressure from the president that the FBI should drop the Russia investigation. If the president has also been, or is also now, pressuring the leader of the Senate to drop the Russia investigations that are under his purview in the Senate, then that's not just personality-driven political gossip. That's a big deal. I mean, particularly if he's been pressuring the Senate leader to protect him from these Russia investigations. And McConnell has not been doing that to the president's satisfaction. And now, in response, the president is politically punishing Mitch McConnell for not going along with his pressure. And this part of it is not like secret cloak and dagger stuff. I mean, if this August 9th phone call that is reported in the New York Times today, if this happened the way these Republican sources say it happened, if the president was berating Mitch McConnell on August 9th, berating him and swearing at him over McConnell not protecting the president from the Senate Russia investigations, if that's true, well, look what's happened since that call happened. I mean, starting August 9th, the president has been using his Twitter feed repeatedly to attack Senator Mitch McConnell by name. The day after that reported call on August 10th, the president gave a press availability from his golf course in New Jersey, where he suggested that perhaps Senator McConnell should resign as the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. Now tonight, less than 2 weeks later, the president is in Arizona trying to inflict maximum political pain on Senate Republicans in direct political conflict with Senator Mitch McConnell. It's one thing if that's just politics. It's interesting, but it's politics. If instead this is the president politically punishing Mitch McConnell for McConnell refusing to accede to the president's Russia demands, then this will likely open a new front in the investigation of potential obstruction of justice by the president. Now, the Russia investigations that are happening in the investigative committees in the Senate, those investigations, as far as we can tell, are full steam ahead. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee took what is reported to be many hours of testimony from the head of the political research group behind the infamous dossier of alleged Russian dirt on Donald Trump. That dossier was reportedly handed over to the FBI last year. It was published by BuzzFeed in January. It has been the source of a lot of controversy. Glenn Simpson is a former investigative journalist for the Wall Street Journal. He was reportedly interviewed by Senate Judiciary Committee staff today for 10 hours. There's one report tonight that he handed over as many as 40,000 documents to the committee. Again, Fusion GPS, his outfit, is the group that ultimately commissioned that dossier. And he just handed over 40,000 documents? The leader of that committee is Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. And we've talked about here on the show the fact that Senator Grassley in the past has made an effort to try to undermine the dossier by attacking its origins and by attacking Fusion GPS. So far, those efforts have really been to no effect. But today, ABC News reports that the man who actually created the dossier, not the guy who commissioned it and arranged for payment for it, but the former MI6 officer in Britain who collected the intelligence, who contacted those sources, who wrote up the dossier in the first place, the man who was hired by Fusion GPS to create the dossier, Christopher Steele himself, according to ABC News today, not only has talked to the FBI in detail about the dossier and how he put it together. According to ABC News today, Christopher Steele has given the FBI specific information about the identity of his sources that he used to put the dossier together. Now, if that ABC News report is true, that would allow the FBI to retrace Christopher Steele's steps to either verify or disprove what is in that incredibly inflammatory dossier. You'll remember that the key claim of the dossier, aside from a bunch of salacious personal stuff, is that the Trump campaign not only knowingly colluded with the Russian attack on the election last year, but that it was the end product of a years-long relationship that involved the exchange of politically useful information, that included potential coercion by Russia toward Trump, and that included extensive illicit financial ties between Trump businesses, and Russian entities, including some that are close to Vladimir Putin. I mean, that's what's in the dossier, right? If the firm that paid for that investigation just handed over 40,000 pages worth of documents, and the founder of that firm just gave 10 hours of testimony, and if the intelligence agent who collected that information has confided information about his sources to the FBI for their own investigation of those matters, well, then you could see where the pressure might be boiling up from in terms of the White House really wanting to try to shut down these investigations. And looking ahead in terms of next steps, Christopher Steele himself, the former MI6 agent, he is being eagerly sought by the investigative committees in the Congress as a potential witness for their inquiries. We do not know if that will ever happen. Obviously, that would be basically a truckload of political dynamite for this country if he did testify and if his story held up. So, I mean, obviously there were high stakes here already. If this New York Times reporting and this ABC News reporting tonight bears out, the stakes have just gotten that much higher. And I just want to put one last point on it. We just got some exclusive new national polling. We just got it in from PPP, Public Policy Polling. This is due to come out tomorrow. They've given us an exclusive first look at these numbers tonight, so you haven't heard these anywhere else. These are exclusive to us. This is national survey results, factoring in Democrats and independents and Republicans, who, of course, remain very loyal to Donald Trump. Here are these national top-line results. Quote, do you think that the Russia story is fake news or not? Answer from the American people, no. America does not think the Russia story is fake news. Question 21. Quote, do you think that members of Donald Trump's campaign team worked in association with Russia to help Trump win the election for president or not? Answer from the American public, yes. We think members of Donald Trump's campaign team worked in association with Russia to help Trump win the election for president. And here's the crucial follow-up question. Question 22. Quote, if evidence comes out that proves conclusively that members of Donald Trump's campaign team worked in association with Russia to help Trump win the election for president, do you think Trump should continue to serve as president, or do you think he should resign? Answer from the American people by a 20-point margin. Yeah, in that case, Trump should resign. So this is a clear majority of the American public. And
how are 30% of people that fucking stupid?
In that instance. Again, this is new national polling that's coming out from Public Policy Polling tomorrow. They gave us an advanced look at some of these numbers tonight. In terms of the methodology of this polling, it was conducted through yesterday, so it doesn't include any public reaction to whatever the president's going to say tonight in Arizona. It doesn't involve reaction to this new reporting in the New York Times that the president may have another obstruction of justice line of inquiry to worry about now. This time what's reported to be an effort by the president to shut down the congressional investigations into his campaign in Russia. Again, we're going to have expert advice on that potential new inquiry coming up. Plus the Phoenix mayor joining us live. We got a lot to get to tonight. Stay with us.
We're on to you, diabetes. Time's up. Insufficient.
About Trump as a, quote, roadmap for investigation. They also say that they stand by their work. They stand by that dossier and what's in it. And then look at this. Look at how they end their statement. They're basically requesting that the committee release the transcript of those 10 hours of interviews that Glenn Simpson sat for today. Quote, the committee has the right, the committee has a transcript of the interview. The committee has the right to disclose the transcript if it wishes to do so. Which I think is Fusion GPS basically inviting the Judiciary Committee to make the content of Glenn Simpson's 10-hour interview available to the public. Gulp. And that statement and that very provocative prospect has just come out tonight on the heels of this new New York Times reporting that the president, according to Republican sources, may have pressured the top Republican in the Senate to protect him from the Russia investigations happening in Congress. If that report is true, would that potentially open another line of inquiry into the president potentially having tried to obstruct justice on the Russia investigation? Joining us now is Barbara McQuaid. She's a former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Barbara, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate you being here on short notice.
Oh, my pleasure.
I feel like I have come to learn in recent months about what obstruction of justice might mean, what it means in criminal terms in terms of somebody trying to block or pervert or pressure an FBI inquiry. Does the same criminal framework apply to somebody trying to block an investigation by Congress?
Yes, there's a different statute, but a very similar one in the criminal code that makes it a crime to corruptly or by threats obstruct, impede, or interfere with an investigation by Congress or any committee of Congress.
Does the law spell that out? How far does that statute go in spelling out what kind of things would be considered obstruction?
Well, it has the same kind of language. It parallels the same statute that covers investigations by agencies or the FBI. But the key words there really are corruptly or threaten. If this news report is true, it sounds like you would have the elements of an offense. Certainly the facts always matter. But one thing that's really important, in stark contrast to what we saw a couple of weeks ago when President Trump was threatening members of the Senate like Lisa Murkowski in the legislative arena, saying, I'm going to withhold federal funds unless you vote for health care. That's okay. That is political hardball. They call that log rolling. That happens all the time. But when you get into Congress's investigative powers and you seek to interfere with those, then that becomes a crime.
And who would investigate that? Is that something that Congress itself investigates because it's a crime against or in relation to a congressional investigation, or is that something that the Department of Justice or the FBI would look into?
No, the FBI and the Department of Justice would look into it. I would suggest that this is part of the purview of the special counsel, Robert Mueller, who has the authority to look into ties between Russia and the Trump campaign and matters that may arise out of it, including obstruction of justice. So my guess is that Robert Mueller and his team would be very interested in learning the facts of this case. It could be yet another count in any indictment or presentment that goes to Congress. And in these kinds of cases, it can really bolster a second count. So if you've got a count involving efforts to intimidate or obstruct with Jim Comey in those conversations, and then you also have another count that has the same kind of theme against Senator McConnell here, those two counts can really become self-bolstering of each other. It demonstrates a common scheme or plan that really helps bolster both of those counts.
And briefly, Barbara, forgive my ignorance on this, but if Mitch McConnell is the key witness to this, if this pressuring happened in a phone call, what's described in the New York Times today is that there are other Republicans who are briefed on the contents of that call. But if he was alone with the president on that call, he would obviously be the key witness here. Could Robert Mueller compel him to testimony, or is there anything special about his status as the Senate Majority Leader that might protect him from having to provide testimony to any sort of inquiry?
There is nothing that would protect him from being compelled. My guess is that Robert Mueller would first attempt to obtain information through an interview with Senator McConnell in hopes that he could get it that way. And only if he was not able to provide that voluntarily would he have to go to that measure of compelling him. But there's nothing that would protect him from being compelled under the law.
Barbara McQuaid, former U.S. Attorney in Michigan, thank you for your time and always for your incredible clarity. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
All right, Mayor Phoenix joins us live in just a moment. Stay with us.
Now at the Honda Summerbration sales event, you can get a great deal.
The vitriolic anti-immigrant speech he gave the last time he was in Phoenix. The president's apparently now abandoned idea of using tonight's appearance in Phoenix to grant a presidential pardon to the famously anti-immigrant, recently convicted former sheriff of Maricopa County. All of these things tonight have combined to create some real worries about what was going to happen at this rally, about potential clashes between Trump supporters and Trump protesters at the site of the rally and all around downtown Phoenix. Now, police have been trying to keep the two sides separated. The Democratic mayor of Phoenix has been fervently making the case in recent days that the president shouldn't do this, shouldn't take it out on Phoenix if he has a continuing desire to stoke racial tensions after his comments last week, praising the very fine people at the white supremacist march last weekend in Virginia. But the president has made his way to Phoenix tonight, as have the protesters. Joining us now from Phoenix is the mayor, Greg Stanton, who asked the president to postpone this trip. Mr. Mayor, thank you for making time to be here with us tonight. How have things gone tonight so far?
So far, Rachel, things have gone very smoothly in the city of Phoenix. There have been huge crowds
people expressing their First Amendment rights outside of the convention center, a large number of people entering the convention center to hear President Trump's speech. So far, so good. Yes, I was very heartened when the president's press secretary indicated that there would be no pardon for Sheriff Joe. Obviously, the president on occasion doesn't listen to his staff, so we're still going to pay close attention. But I think that announcement that there was no pardon for Sheriff Joe and all of his civil rights violations did make us feel a lot better that things are going to go safely here in Phoenix tonight.
Obviously, as you described there, and that's great news about the peaceful nature of the protests and the fact that there hasn't been violence that people were so worried about tonight. Obviously, that's why a lot of people have their eyes on Phoenix tonight, is partly because of those worries. I have to ask you, though, about a lot of the photos that we've seen today of folks with guns. Interestingly, both Trump supporters with guns and a couple of protesters on the other side, at least, also open carrying tonight. Obviously, Arizona's an open carry state. Does the presence of so many visible guns at tonight's protests increase your concern?
Yes, it does. And I wish that people who were coming downtown to express their First Amendment rights, either opposing the president and his policies and, unfortunately, his failure of moral leadership after Charlottesville just a few days ago, or those supporting the president, would leave their weapons at home. They don't need to try to antagonize others in the audience by bringing those very large weapons. It's unfortunate, but Arizona is an open carry state, and thus far there have been no arrests for any kind of weapons violations in Phoenix tonight.
And Mr. Mayor, you were quite outspoken ahead of this that you did not want the president to come to Phoenix and do this rally there, that you were worried about what he might set off and his motivations for coming there. I just have to ask, did the president ever reach out to you? Did the White House ever contact you to address your concerns or to find out more about whether there was a way they could do this that would be less antagonistic? Did you ever have any contact with them?
Rachel, I put out a public statement strongly making the case that this was not the right time for this campaign rally. And it is a campaign rally. The Phoenix Convention Center was rented by the Trump for President campaign. Such a short time after the tragedy in Charlottesville, with the tragic murder of a young lady at the hands of a neo-Nazi, with the specter of a potential presidential pardon of Sheriff Joe, despite all of his civil rights violations of Latinos in our community, that this simply wasn't the right time. But shortly thereafter, a spokesperson for the White House indicated that they were not going to heed my advice and they were going to move forward with tonight's campaign rally here in Phoenix.
And they never called you about it, and you never spoke with the president about it?
I've not had the opportunity to speak to President Trump about it. I think, look, I'm not naive or Pollyannish. I didn't reasonably expect that he would listen to me, but I think the point had to be made. I think I spoke on behalf of most of Phoenicians and most of the people across the United States of America that said that after the president failed so miserably to provide leadership in this country after the tragedy in Charlottesville, that such a short time thereafter to do a campaign rally in Phoenix, it wasn't right. And so I stand by my statement that this should have been postponed. We're not saying never do it. Look, we understand politics is politics, and eventually you have to do campaign rallies, but this wasn't the right time here in Phoenix.
Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton. Sir, thank you for joining us. I know it's a very, very busy, fraught night. And let us know if you hear from the president anytime soon. Appreciate your time.
We will.
Sir.
Thank you.
All right. We have much more to come tonight. Stay with us.
One of the great things about getting out of the
Okay. So how's my volume right now? Am I echoing? Or does it sound normal? Boy, those cigarettes are going quick, aren't they? I figured out basically that each webcam runs its own audio virtual device, so that even though that this microphone is technically the same as the webcam's microphone, I can, if I want to avoid the echoing, when I turn on a webcam's microphone, whether it be this one or the Logitech one that we were using for the television viewing, I have to mute this microphone, which I'm pointing to the button that I can see that y'all can't see, but it's That microphone, yeah. Muted, unmuted, unmuted. Okay. So I can't tell if switching from scene to scene, which is what changes this whole backdrop, is also going to automatically turn that webcam's microphone off, since it's not in this scene as a source. So if you could hear me say muted faintly just then, that would answer my question. So yeah, in the future, if I want to do a webcam facing that way and a webcam facing this way, I just need to turn on their individual mics and then mute this microphone, or keep them muted and just use this microphone. So I figured it all out, so it should no longer suck. Alright, so I did manage to find not exactly what I was looking for unsuccessfully last night, but I found a clip that included the same verification, this one from Andrea Mitchell. And let me just find my MSNBC history here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have figured it out sooner if I wasn't so damn sleep deprived all the time. This really does take its toll on my ability to see simple problems. Anyways, I'm constantly focused on very complex things. Yeah, you were just getting a little too Ron Jeremy there, Joey. Be quiet. So, yeah. It's hard to do anything that involves, like, I don't know, virtual machining physical inputs. Like, even if you've done shit like that for decades, which I kind of have. Not professionally, well, not frequently. Watch the Mika Brzezinski learns about what furries are in the interview with Obama's girlfriend on MSNBC. Those are a couple priceless videos. Beethoven's fourth movement, 23 minutes, 10 seconds. Good version. Keith Olbermann's video today was good. The Daily Show Trevor Noah, their video on the master race needs to play it cool. That's some pretty funny shit right there. It would be nice if people actually learned, like, stuff and things. So, wait, hold on. I think I'm almost where I was trying to get. Maybe? Was that it? Shit. Let me see here.
That's sort of No, I was going to say there are two sort of iterations of the
What? I thought. It was at the beginning of that video. Maybe. It's at the beginning of one of these videos.
There are no Americans for tonight's stakes than the 85 American military families who have loved ones serving in Afghanistan.
No.
I want to bring now into the conversation Andrea Mitchell, Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent, host of Andrea Mitchell Reports here on MSNBC. Andrea, thank you for being with us tonight. I know it's busy. I want to ask you about the president's remarks toward Pakistan tonight. Those are the things that struck me as a change in American international relations. In the sense that the president insulted Pakistan to my ear. He said that Pakistan needs to demonstrate that it is committed to civilization, order, and peace, telling a country that they're not committed to civilization, essentially calling them barbarians. I doubt that will be well received. And then he immediately followed it by saying, and we would like more direct involvement in Afghanistan from India, which of course will raise hackles in the Pakistani government because of the fraught relationship between those two countries. That seems to me like the biggest change diplomatically and in international relations tonight. Can I ask your reaction to that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what leaped out at me because American diplomats and presidents have made a pact really for decades. You don't go to Pakistan without also going to India. It's been this even-handed approach. You've got two nuclear-armed states. They have fought so many wars between them. And the fact is, this is a direct insult to Pakistan, which frankly deserves the insult because they protect and shelter the Haqqani network. But by first of all, laying Pakistan, the responsibility on Pakistan to do something about their terrorism. It's not usually done this openly. And by bringing India into it, it is such an insult and such a provocation that I can't see what the incentive would be for Pakistan to take any action. They now have their pride and their authority, their nationhood challenged by the president. So it is a strange way to try to expand the strategy to include all of South Asia.
And in terms of the U.S. government and its orientation on these issues, the president didn't appoint a random crony or fundraiser to be ambassador to Pakistan. There's a career foreign service person who has been named as the ambassador to Pakistan. That seems like a gesture towards stability, at least in that relationship. That said, he dissolved the special representative for Afghanistan and Pakistan, which is an envoy, sort of a super envoy position that existed throughout the Obama administration. And then we've seen such major changes at the State Department, including not staffing up even the senior ranks of that agency. If a new big fight with a nuclear power has just been picked by the president, how is that going to be staffed and handled by this administration?
Well, it isn't staffed and it isn't handled. You've got just a handful of people in position not really able to cope with this kind of thing. The fact is also that when he says no more nation building, Rachel, there has been a positive effect from what both Presidents Bush and Obama did. Now, a lot of that has gone down the drain in the last couple of years as the Taliban has reclaimed territory. There's no question that we are losing, that we're not just in stalemate, that the good guys are actually falling behind, and that there is corruption in Kabul. In the past, you did hear this against Karzai, but you had not heard it against this government in Kabul. So that is also picking at a sword. But I don't see what the change is, other than what Courtney said. He deliberately gave Mattis, Nicholson, and the other generals the ability to decide on future deployments. Mattis, I think very smartly, did not accept it by delaying this until there was a review and getting the president's buy-in. I think the biggest change may be that they have persuaded over these many meetings and many arguments to get the president to go against his own grain, to go against his instincts, to go against Steve Bannon, if you will, and to make a decision that is more in line with what his generals believe necessary, which is not a complete withdrawal, and certainly not hiring Eric Prince for $10 billion a year to bring his mercenaries in and turn it over to the private sector. So that is where his head was and his heart. And they have now reeled him in, and he is now going along with Nicholson, whom he publicly criticized, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Mattis, and H.R. McMaster, and of course John Kelly, for whom Afghanistan is such an emotional challenge, given the fact that
That's the same damn one. That's the same one. That's the same one. That's the one from this morning. And Andrea Mitchell was at the beginning of this video. Before he says, anyways.
Anyway, you were going to say. No, I was going to say there are two sort of iterations of the neocon line. I mean, the Paul Wolfowitz position, arrogant.
That's the one. That had. It was like another minute long. Hold on.
So here is my first statement.
Oh, there we go. Okay, found it.
he's talking about is Russia. The other thing that nobody's talking about is Russia. Russia is playing a major role now in Afghanistan and against our interests. The other thing that nobody's talking about is Russia. Russia is playing a major role now in Afghanistan and against our interests. And
y'all heard that, right? Everybody hear that? Y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? Russia is playing a major role in Afghanistan against our interests in Afghanistan. You know, with the Taliban, the people who cooperated with the people who took down the buildings. They happen to be cooperating with them. You know, those people who are cooperating with him, now they're cooperating with them. See where this is going? The Mueller investigation is going back to 2002 that we know of. Mr. Trump, it might be a good time for you to fake your own death and get the fuck out of the country because you're going under the fucking jail, bitch.
supporting the Taliban. That did not come up in the speech yesterday.
I guess it wouldn't.
So have you yet to hear how they're going to actually carry out this regional approach?
Brett, how do you rate at this point Rex Tillerson? I think James Mattis, Secretary Mattis, has received fairly high marks. It's more of a mixed record for Rex Tillerson. I was a strong critic of John Kerry, but I think Tillerson really is up there as a nominee for worst Secretary of State ever. And why is that?
Precisely because the State Department is also part of the machinery of government, and that machinery has to run in order for normal things to happen, like having relationships with foreign countries or having consular services for U.S. people, or for doing all the sorts of things that the State Department has to do. And Tillerson seems to be of a kind of Maoist school in which it's like maybe it's Pol Pot. It's
wow.
Well,
okay, that is
no, well,
okay. If that is in fact the case,
I don't mean
that
killing
is
fields,
like
but,
one of the worst secretaries of all time.
Look, I don't mean the killing fields. I mean the year zero mentality, which is blow it all up, see what happens, wait for a while, and then try to arrange pieces as you see fit. That might work in a startup environment. No. It doesn't work in a bureaucracy of, I think, 70,000 people.
The whole idea of saying, you know what we're going to do is we're going to do a study over the first 6 to 9 months of the administration and then figure out what we need. No, actually, the first 6 to 9 months of the administration are the most important months of the administration for sending a message out to the world.
And Tillerson turns out to be a Bannonite in this respect, and it's like this suspicion of the so-called deep state, of the idea that every bureaucrat is in it for himself. There's no sort of spirit of public interest. We're going to sideline all these guys. They're irrelevant anyway. What does the State Department even do?
Right.
And that's kind of that's a strange approach for a man who wants to learn how to be a diplomat, a strange approach for him to take.
It's a bizarre approach, and made more bizarre by the fact that he's been friends with James Baker and several others, and actually got his job on the strength of suggestions from, I would say, great leaders like Bob.
Joe, you're all just sitting around with your thumbs up your asses while your country is being destroyed by the KGB. Not the FSB, the KGB. Oh, the KGB doesn't exist. Oh, yeah, neither does the devil, dumbass.
Bob Gates, Condi Rice, others supported his selection. And so here we are 7, 8 months in, and the State Department is more dysfunctional than it's ever been in American history. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay.
We're being cowed.
We're being cowed. And all the fucking chocolate cake in the world ain't gonna make it better. Birthday cake. Oh! Like, okay. I really just need to make one video, just everybody share it as much as possible. Just called, How Fucking Stupid Can You Be? Because really, Joe Scarborough, everyone else, like everyone, and I'm talking National Security Agencies, CIA, please hear me out, Mr. Mattis, General Kelly, Tillerson's a problem. Just like Trump's a problem. Anybody who's going to go in and gut a federal agency who also happens to have other, borderline or over the line treasonous activities, including a $500 billion, $500 billion, $500 billion deal. And you're going to let him gut the agency that was responsible for the sanctions are you fucking stupid? These people belong in jail. And you belong in fucking insane asylums. And it takes the guy on YouTube who, quote, thinks he's Jesus to tell you. And, you know, I don't mean to be too self-deprecating in pointing that out, but it's fucking hilarious. You got Trump in there, and you got Tillerson in there. Destroying our moral standing, destroying our rule of law, destroying our fabric of unity as a country, and destroying the State Department, destroying the White House, destroying the government. They're destroying us, and you're just fucking all letting them. Why? If we raise the fucking white flag to Russia, and we're just letting them bend us over, the American people deserve to know. And, you know, frankly, if you people are all that incompetent and chicken shit, you should have all fucking resigned. So I refuse to accept either of those scenarios. I mean, obviously I know most of the people in Congress, for instance, are both incompetent and chicken shit. But as far as the law enforcement bodies in this country, all I can say is that you're all just a little bit naive when it comes to being outsmarted by the god of war. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Or are you so petty that you think I'm insulting you? There's no reason why you should be on his level. You see, this is unfortunately, resume crazy talk, ka-chunk. This is a prophesied time in which you would not be able to help yourselves, but you would have to depend on the Lord for strength. Not a big fan of being called the Lord, but, you know, it is what it is. And I am what I am. Anyway. So, like, you know, anybody else think it's time we don't have, like, it's as if you just let a Russian brigade in there and they were just blowing shit up. Okay? Only worse. This is worse than that. Okay? Because if a Russian brigade landed in Washington, D.C., the functions of those things that they, you know, managed to hit with rockets or whatever, those would continue in redundancy elsewhere. What these KGB agents that you naive little children have given security clearances to. That was too far. Okay. They're doing worse. Why would you hit the White House with a nuke or whatever, cruise missile, whatever the Russians would do in in a physical war? Why would you do that when you can turn it into a whorehouse and a den of thieves? Huh? What do you think is more devastating for the nation? To see something that needs to be rebuilt, which we've got plenty of experience in doing? Or to sap our moral strength out from underneath us, leaving us in a perpetual state of what the fuck limbo? That's what they did, and that's what this fucking terrorist knowingly and willfully helped them do. And he's been helping them for quite some time, knowing what they did in 2001, knowing that he helped them after it happened. Oh, and he had what seemed like an oddly guilty conscience, that's for sure. Why blow it up when you can take it over? Why blow it up when you can turn it against us? They it's not so much as the Russians took over our government, is that they've basically taken over just enough of it to put the rest of it on auto-destruct. At least if they took it over, we'd have some closure. It's like, oh, I guess I better start fucking learning Russian, Anyways. So it's funny how that video, I don't think that popped up on my history. I had watched that video shortly after the other one. Maybe I just passed it up and didn't realize it. But that was Andrea Mitchell confirming what I reported back in 2015, which was the Taliban being supported by Russia. And the Taliban has always been supported by Russia. The Taliban was... I clicked the wrong fucking thing again. The Taliban was never supported by the CIA. The Taliban was never supported by the CIA. Wait, hold up. I'm just gonna do a thing right quick, just in case you can't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. The Taliban was never assisted by the CIA. Ever. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. The Taliban was never assisted by the CIA. Never. Yeah? You know what the word never means, right? It means fucking never. The Taliban was never assisted by the CIA. It never fucking happened. You were told that because you're a dumb little schoolgirl. I know. I was a dumb little schoolgirl too. And I believed it. Never, ever, ever, ever. Okay? The Taliban was never helped by the CIA. The CIA never did shit for the Taliban. Ever, ever, ever. That right there is a fundamental building block of your brainwashing. The CIA helped a group called the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen helped the State Department hold a local election. The local election elected. They didn't elect the fucking Taliban. The Taliban came 3 months later and kicked the shit out of the newly elected government. The Taliban was never, ever, ever assisted by the CIA. And they turned people into traitors against their own government by spreading that propaganda. Him and all the shilliverse like Alex Jones and Associates and RT and every motherfucker you ever heard spread that bullshit. That's where you can go. That's where this Mueller investigation needs to go. It needs to go into the old producers of the fucking Discovery Channel, the Learning Channel. It needs to investigate several producers who made their way onto PBS. And it needs to ask them why they were spreading pro-Russian propaganda under the guise of history lessons. Because it's been going on in this country a lot longer than that. And what started to evolve from what is tantamount to tantamount twice in one fucking day. So stupid ever. It's fucking shit. Yeah. Brainwashing? I don't know. I got so distracted by the dumbass word that I forgot what I was saying. I'm fucking tired. Yeah. What was I saying? I don't know. What was I saying? The video on nerve hacking was unnerving. Yes. Certainly was. But no, really, what the hell was I just talking about? Because I'm like starting to get genuinely sleepy here. I don't often brain fart on a live stream, but when I do, I drink those Ickies. Nope, my brain's shutting down. I can't just like play back. I'm losing that ability to just play back recent audio. All I remember is tantamount. All I remember is tantamount. I'm guessing it was something to do with demonic brainwashing. because, you know, usually pretty easy to lose track of what you're saying when you're trying to point out what demons you're trying to keep from everybody. Anyway. Can you back it up? I can't, like, back that thing up while I'm filming. Yeah. I think I remember what I was talking about. Talking about how the Taliban was never assisted by the CIA. Oh, yeah. And that is by far one of the finest examples of just how far the fuckery prevailed. And man, yeah, this multiple decades long campaign against us has also been a multiple decades and even longer campaign against what? Christianity. And no other faith. Just Christianity. Anything resembling true Christianity. And that includes all worldwide remnants of Johanngism. All ancient mystery faiths. Anything that could lead back to the truth, really. But especially the Christians who aren't fucking crazy people. Well, I mean, who aren't crazy people. Every now and again, you gotta fuck some crazy people. I mean, how else would they procreate? I'm getting too tired to use my words. So, on that bombshell, remember the middle topic. Confusing propaganda with strategy is always a win for Russia. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good morning. Whatever it is, whatever you're doing, wherever the hell you are. I hope it's going swell. And I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. I'll be back on later in the morning, 5 or 6 hours or so, after I've slept a little bit. And then tonight around 11ish, 10ish, 11ish, my wife will be doing Q&A regarding the events of 2011 and you know, me and my legitimacy or whatever else y'all want to ask her about. So, everybody, come, you know, hang out for that. Thanks for watching. Click the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the dingy bell so you get notifications. Maybe. Otherwise, check back at 7 a.m.